The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Morning decisions. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
You say you want to be great. Are you willing to work as hard as you can every single day when your lungs are about to explode because you're working an anaerobic type of a training method so you can recover between plays? Are you embracing that? Are you excited about that? Are you embracing the opportunity of fatigue, or are you running away from the opportunity of fatigue? You said you wanted to be great. This is what's going to be required. This is a standard. And then the idea of raising the bar on the standards.
Before we get started, I want to thank John Harbaugh and the Harbaugh Coaching Academy for making this conversation possible. One of the things I appreciate most about Coach Harbaugh is that he's never stopped being a teacher. Whether he's leading an NFL team or talking football with high school coaches, he's constantly asking questions, sharing ideas, and looking for better ways to coach. That's exactly what you'll hear in this episode. If you enjoy conversations like this, I encourage you to visit harbaughcoachingacademy.org. It's a free resource where you can learn from hundreds of conversations with some of the best coaches in football, along with leaders from business, education, and the military. Now let's get into our conversation with New York Giants head coach, John Harbaugh. Coaches, don't miss out on this free recruiting resource. Story of the Season just launched their new recruiting profile web platform. Replace your recruit spreadsheet with an interactive web page and showcase your players and promote your program all in one link. You can customize your team page and seamlessly upload player information. Each profile is complete with huddle highlights, stats, academics, coach comments, headshots, and contact information. You can make edits and updates all season long whenever you need. Try out recruiting profiles completely free until 2027. No credit card or commitment is needed. If you want a better and more affordable way to get your players recruited, go to recruiting.storyoftheseason.com today or check the description for a link.
Visible puts the ultimate wireless hack in the palm of your hand. With unlimited 5G wireless data and hotspot designed to keep you connected, powered by Verizon's 5G network. And no contract holding you back. Plans start at $25 a month, or get the premium Visible Plus Pro plan and save $10 on your first month when you use promo code HACK. Make the switch at Visible.com. Terms apply. See Visible.com for details.
Welcome to another episode of the Coaching Coordinator Podcast, and I'm really excited to be joined by the New York Giants head coach, John Harbaugh, today. So, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time here before you guys get going with your season.
Great to be with you, Keith. Appreciate it. Appreciate all you do for coaches and the profession, and by extension, for all the players that get coached.
Absolutely. That's what we do as coaches, obviously has that ripple effect. And even, you think about some of these high school coaches in their small communities, even a small community, what a positive impact we can have as coaches because of what we do for our players. So I'm excited to dig into some of these topics we're going to talk about today. But for you, this is new, right? Months back, sitting in that seat in a new building, obviously coming from one of the most respected programs in the NFL with what you did in Baltimore. But, day one walking into that building for you, kind of in a way starting over, what were the first things you really thought about? This is what we're going to establish here for the New York Giants.
Well, that's the thing. You walk in and I don't think, certainly there are principles and beliefs, standards. We call them self-evident football truths that we believe in, that we know are going to have to be the core of what we do. Those things never change. Those things are inalienable requirements of football. So we stick to those things. We know that But how are you going to establish those things and what the quote unquote culture, what the mindset, what the shared understanding is going to be is all based on the circumstances and the people. So try to meet the circumstances where they're at, try to meet the people where they're at. So the first thing is you walk in and you try to learn, you try to figure it out, try to get a grasp on the status of things and how things operate, where things are at, what your resources are, et cetera. And then you just kind of go to work from there, just case by case, conversation by conversation, decision by decision, choice by choice, request for funds by request for funds, and figure out a day-to-day kind of what the next steps are. Most of the decisions you make are just based on the landscape that you're facing that day.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I mean, you can't look at coaching or developing an organization as a copy and paste function. Just because it worked exactly like this in one situation doesn't mean it's going to work exactly here. I think I learned as a young coach, you fall in love with ideas. It might be an offense, a playbook, or a play, and you see how that's designed. For somebody else, what you got to realize is, they designed it with their situation in mind, with their people in mind, to work a certain way against a certain opponent or whatever it might be. And some of those things will work, but it's like you said, you have to understand, you have to learn, how is this going to fit over here? It doesn't mean that the principles change, but the way that they're presented, the way that you approach it, I think that's what's unique about coaching. It is not copy paste. If it was, everybody could stay in this profession for a long time. That's where we really have to work at it as a coach.
I agree totally.
With that, as you step into that building, the standards start to go into place. You're quickly, because of the nature of what you guys do, you're getting into it. You're going to have your meetings, your mini camps, all those kinds of things. And when you're looking at that process for you as the head coach, what's the most important thing that you do in terms of getting the standards going and getting those systems going?
Well, you try to kind of establish like how you're going to operate, like what the value system is. And that kind of goes to there's things that you say, well, what are we going to emphasize? And there's a leveling of it. You start with rules. Rules are the most basic thing. Do this, you can do this, you can't do that. If you do that, then this is going to happen. Rules are a low common denominator, the lowest level of common denominator for behavior. But we're not talking about behavior. We're talking about accomplishment, achievement. So beyond that, now you kind of go towards expectations. What are the expectations? The expectations are based on the requirements. What is it going to take? And we have to understand what's it going to take. What are we trying to accomplish and what's it going to take? So those are requirements. So these are the expectations. This is where we have to start. With that as the standards. So there's a level of doing things. We got to work hard. How hard? As hard as we can. How hard is that? It's really hard to work as hard as you can every single day, but you say you want to do something special. You say you want to be great. Are you willing to work as hard as you can every single day? When your lungs are about to explode because you're working, an anaerobic type of a training method so you can recover between plays. Are you embracing that? Are you excited about that? Are you embracing the opportunity of fatigue, or are you running away from the opportunity of fatigue? So, how much, you said you wanted to be great. Well, okay, this is what's going to be required. This is a standard. And then the idea of raising the bar on the standards. So, the 4-minute mile was never going to be broken. It was a barrier that was impossible. Roger Bannister decided he was going to do whatever it took, and he did, and he broke it. And now what are they running the mile in, So the bar is always raising on human accomplishment. So why not us? We're humans. We're trying to accomplish things, and we've only got this one life and this one opportunity. Why can't we try to raise the standards? And to raise standards, we feel like you have to chase perfection. You have to chase perfection. People will say, well, you can never attain perfection. Well, I don't think that's true. You can attain perfection. As a matter of fact, the Bible will tell you that perfection is a requirement, that you can be perfect. You can't be perfect all the time, but you've had perfect days, haven't you, Keith? You've had perfect moments. Have you ever had the perfect meal? How about the perfect date? How about the perfect wife? I tell my wife she's the perfect wife every single day.
You better.
That's how I see it. So we're going to chase perfection, and we're going to expect to achieve perfection a lot. So we grade that, right? As coaches, we chart that. We know. So there's going to be a play where everybody's going to do exactly the right thing the right way and finish it perfectly. And when we can get a perfect play, man, we are going to celebrate that thing. We're going to point it out, and we're going to count it up. and chase as many of those as we can. So with that mindset, it gives us the best chance to raise the standard, to accomplish the standard every single day, and to try to, fulfill our expectations.
Looking at that was kind of a little bit more on the player perspective. And for example, the perfect play and their execution, those guys who are planning it all day long, your coaches, what would you say is like a perfect day for them? How do they go about their job for the New York Giants to create that perfect day as a coach?
Well, I mean, like coaching is science and art, but, there's a lot that goes into it. And, coaches are probably the biggest problem, the biggest impediment, or maybe the biggest opportunity too, because if you find a way to do things really well, then what an advantage is to do it better than the guy who's coaching the team you're going against. If you can, that's certainly the competitive part of the whole thing. But are you setting the stage? Are you creating the opportunity for the perfect play? Are you creating the opportunity for the players to play their very best? Are you creating advantages for them in your game planning? But also, I'm a big systems guy. Like, people will say, what do you do? It's like, you know what I do? I build systems. I don't call the play on game day. I build the system that calls the play. That is where success lies in accomplishment. It took quite a system to get to the moon probably, but this phone right here, that's even more than what the system that got us to the moon. This thing is unbelievable, man. All it can do, all it can operate, what you're capable to do with it. And even I can figure out most of it, So if I touch it, swipe it, move it, pound it, click it, I can make it do a lot of incredible things very simply. But what's happening inside of that phone to make those things happen is part of the system that was created. It's very, very elegant. It answers a lot of questions, a lot of problems, a lot of science and technology, there's a lot of thoughtful thinking in there so that it can be operated simply, okay? In our football systems, we call that building through elegant simplicity. We want to build something that's really well built so that it can be operated very simply in real time in the game. We're always chasing that so that when we present it to our players, it's really easy to teach and it's really easy to understand so that they can go out there and they can operate it, execute at the highest level.
I love that idea of elegant simplicity. And after 10 years of being away from the sideline, I'm coaching this year. I'm helping one of my former players.
Good for you. You're back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle. I'm putting together the playbook for this team. I realized I've got different players from the last time I've coached this particular playbook. I've got to create it for them. And simplicity, making it simple enough to learn and execute was a big filter. I mean, for you, especially today, we look at what we get as coaches. It used to be in learning this game. I'm sure you could think back to the early days, John, where it was, you get some videos from Coach's Choice. You might visit with a staff. You might read a book. And there wasn't necessarily a lot of football content. Now we're overwhelmed with it. I mean, in one way or another, you could probably get anybody's playbook now. Can't say that they've all been put out there legally, but the truth is you could get every playbook. You could get every piece of film. There's thousands and thousands of hours of clinics that have come out just since the pandemic, right? And so we have all this knowledge and all these ideas and they all look great. And if we put everything in our playbook, the things we love, that thing would be as tall as us. But we have to figure out what is that elegant simplicity? What's the filter for you as a head coach? Because you're looking at all the systems, right? You're looking at how you guys coach, how you teach, what exactly goes in the special teams playbook, the defense, the offense, all those things. What's the filter for elegant simplicity?
Well, there's a whole bunch of filters, but if you're going to talk about how many plays you can run or how many schemes you can run, that's one thing, and the longer you begin it, just the more options that you have, If I'm an artist, there's a lot of things I can draw. What am I going to choose to draw? I'm going to choose to draw what I really believe in. I really think is important, what has a chance to be successful based on the things you mentioned right at the start. Who do we have? What's the talent level that we have? What's presenting itself as the most viable that we can be the best at, most successful at, and who are we playing? And then also how are we affecting the game? In 2019, we had Lamar Jackson. It's going to be his first starting season. We're facing the defenses that we were facing, and it's okay, we've got this unique guy who's super, super talented, who is a quarterback in every sense of the term, but, people don't see him that way because they don't think he's going to play the type of playbook, so to speak, that Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or whatever. So therefore, he's not a quarterback. That was a big advantage for us. We called it, revolution. It was the revolution. That was the offense that we put in that year. And he was the MVP, and we set a bunch of records because we had a bunch of plays in that people weren't prepared for and weren't ready to defend. And he executed them beautifully. Run, pass, play action pass, RPO, all that stuff was in there. And he did it so well. The next year, they all got together, the whole league seemed like, and they all had like a Stop Lamar defensive seminar among defensive coordinators. And they started coming up with ways to do that. And they got a little better at it, but you're not stopping Lamar. When we pivoted with Todd Monken, a couple years later after Greg, and then we we opened it up, so to speak. We went to some other ideas, and Lamar was MVP again. So you've always got to be, what I always say is I just say, keep it moving. You got to keep it moving. So there's trends and there's things that everybody's doing. I'd like to be going the other direction if we can be, but it's all going to be based around principles that are written in stone, that are self-evident truths of football. Those are the fundamental truths that they're all going to be built around. But the scheme thing, man, that's like water. That's methodology. That can be done a lot of different ways. And the best way to do it is the best way at that time based on all those different things. Water flows where it flows because it makes the most sense to go there at that moment. And that's kind of, I think, how your methodology should be.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I mean, that's exactly it. You look at the football landscape today in terms of turnover and keeping rosters together, the NFL is really the only place where that seems to have some stability anymore. You look at college football, I mean, they're putting some new rules in place, but I think I saw the stat at the combine of the guys who were there. I think they said there was one guy who was at the same school all 4 years. I mean, to me, that's insane in how you develop or how you evolve something. But we're seeing that trickle down to the high school level. I hear coaches all the time telling me, there was one this spring in Georgia. He had 2 quarterbacks transfer out right before spring ball started because they thought that the sophomore was going to win the job. Like, to me, it's, those things that are happening give a lot of merit to thinking exactly like that. Like, where's the water going to go? That's how we need to evolve. And I think it's just one of the things now. We've always done that at coaches, but at the college and high school level, you got to do it at an accelerated place until maybe some of the controls are put in place for you. That's the art of being a coach right now.
Right. There's a lot of, you can debate always. My brother 7-8 years ago, and they got mad at him, all the coaches got mad at him because he said, the players are going to get paid, and they're like, don't say that. And then he got kind of ostracized in that community. I even think the NCAA came after him as for that reason. That's just my opinion. What do I know? But it's like, because he spoke the truth. And he told them, they said, they said, what are we going to do about it? It can't happen. He goes, we're amateur sports. And he said, right. He said, but yeah, we're amateur, but we tell them we're making all this money, as the top level teams are. And yet the players can't share in it, in the finances. But we're saying you're not allowed to go pro. You're not allowed to make money until you played in college for 3 years. That's the problem. So that's not going to hold up. And so his solution was do like high school basketball does. If you want to go pro, you can go pro. You want to go pro out of high school? Go pro. You want to go pro after your first year? Go pro. We're not going to hold anybody back from earning a living playing the sport of football, but we are amateur football. We are amateur sports. And if you want to stay at this level, then it's not a pay for play model. Okay. And I'd look back on that and I'm like, man, that was like so forward thinking and so ahead, but maybe that cat's out of the bag now because they weren't thinking like that. They weren't thinking in a way that was just, they couldn't get out of that mindset of like, they wanted their cake and they wanted to eat it too. And it wasn't fair. Now you're paying your players in amateur sports. And now that doesn't make any sense either because, well, they're not getting taxed. They should be. They're employees. They don't have collective bargaining. They should. They're employees. So the whole thing's a free for all and it'll get fixed, it'll get squared away because it doesn't make any sense. But you got to draw some lines somewhere. The old line between amateur sports and professional sports, no matter how much amateur sports bring in, it's still amateur sports. That doesn't mean there can't be like stipends and things like that, but it's amateur sports. And if you want to go be a pro, go be a pro. The minute you say that, amateur sports are now pro sports, then they're pro sports. And there's a lot of things that go with that. And I just think it's kind of sad that everybody has a different path, but man, the idea that you're with it, you could transfer back in the day, and it was probably too restrictive, but the idea that you can play with, you can be on a team for all these years and make all these friends and have all these relationships and have this experience and tough out the tough times and all those things. That's the things I cherish. I mean, my buddies, my college teammates who I have had 4 years with, they're some of the best friends in my whole world, my whole life because of the shared experiences that we had, We drank a few beers playing the radio game. We'd run the dial and try to guess. Now this is old stuff because that's when you had radio.
That's right.
And all of a sudden you come up on a song and it's like, it'd be like, oh, it's Fleetwood Mac. And first one, and I don't know, maybe you won $1. But that was those things, I hope the college guys are not losing some of these experiences because now they want to be pros, before It's time to be a pro.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's part of the beauty of this game is the bonds that it does build. And that's something you would hate to lose because we've turned it into something different at that level. But I know this, Coach, and you look historically over time, our game at whatever level has always had its challenges, and it's not been some governing body that's fixed it for us. It's always been the coaches figuring it out. And I think as difficult as some of those things might seem right now, we'll figure it out. I mean, just if you wanted the world to work right, I think you'd put football coaches like in every position. We'd be good.
Yeah, you would. I mean, I think when the legislators, and maybe it is Congress, because it is, now this is like legal stuff. So, there is going to, Congress is like, they're going to get involved. They have to, because this is labor law now. We put ourselves in that world, and that's okay. So they're going to have to make some decisions and choices, but where are they going to go? They're going to talk to coaches. They're going to talk to administrators too, sure. And they're going to talk to athletes, I hope. They should. But at the end of the day, the coaches have a responsibility with that. And it's basically the responsibility is to be smart, to open up their thinking a little bit, to understand the ramifications in the big picture. You can't sit up there and just start speaking from the standpoint of what's best for the coaches or what's best for my team or what's best for my league and all that kind of stuff. How's it going to help me or even the administrators? What's going to make us the most money? No, it's like what makes the most sense based on the principles of what's right and what's fair, and decide what principles that you're going to adhere to, and then work from there. Then you can build the standards and the rules out from there. I think amateurism and professionalism is a good dividing line between college and pro sports. It was around for a long time. It makes a lot of sense, and you can do something with that. But hopefully the coaches will, when they get their chance, Keith, hopefully they'll give those people some good advice.
Yeah, I think that's the hope for everybody. We'll get right back to the conversation in just a moment. If you're enjoying what you're hearing from Coach Harbaugh today, there's a place where these kinds of coaching conversations happen every week. At Harbaugh Coaching Academy, you'll find hundreds of in-depth discussions with championship coaches from every level of football. They're not clinic presentations or highlight reels. They're honest conversations about leadership, culture, player development, and building systems that actually work. One thing Coach Harbaugh says later in this episode really captures what the Academy is all about. It's an opportunity to sit in on a coaching conversation. That's exactly what it feels like. The entire library is free to access. Just visit harbaughcoachingacademy.org, create your account, and start learning from some of the best minds in the game. Now back to Coach Harbaugh. Going back to the coaching side of this and looking at, whether you're stepping into the building for the New York Giants for the first time or, year 30 of coaching your high school football team. I had legendary high school football coach Chuck Kyle on a podcast years ago, talked about every season being like a book. Every single one is a new story. And so whether it's guys who have been on our roster for a long time or guys joining us for the first time, whatever your situation might be, I think that's a good analogy because even those guys who have come back from that previous year, they're different. The pieces are always different. The story is going to be different. I mean, the challenge for us is to write that story as the coaches. And I think the first piece of that is alignment, right? If we're going to go forward together and if we're going to write a good story with a happy ending, it all starts with alignment. And I saw years ago somebody draw a diagram of this. It was this big, thick arrow, and inside it had all these little arrows, different sizes, different colors, some with a longer line, some with a shorter line, like different shapes of those arrows, etc. And the point being that we have all these individuals within our organization, whatever kind of team we have, and those arrows can be different, but they all got to be pointed the same way. For you, as you walked into that building the first time, what were some of the first things you worked to do to start to set that path so that all the arrows are pointed the same way?
Well, Chuck Kyle, man. I mean, when I was young, in my mid-20s, I went to Cleveland St. Ignatius and started recruiting, and the coach was Chuck Kyle. And he had just started. It was like his first year. Hanky replaced the legendary coach there. But we were both young, and I hadn't talked to him much over the years, but maybe we bumped into each other once or twice. And, what an unbelievable, career accomplishment he had when you're somewhere for that long, that much success, with that many people that love you, and all those stories that he created. Like each one of those little arrows that you talked about is a unique individual person who is putting everything on the line to be on your team and be a part of your organization. And the experience that they have with you as their coach will be remembered for the rest of their life. So that arrow is a human being who you can affect and impact, and you will affect and impact for the rest of your life. The only question is will it be for good or for not good? And coaches have great power and great influence. They will always be remembered. You as a coach will always be remembered, because when someone signs up for the team, that's a big, big step out type of a moment. That's a big risk that people take, young people. It's one of the first risks they take in their life. I don't care if they're 8 years old or 17 years old. They step out and they take a shot. They have a dream. They have a hope. How's this going to go? And so they will remember that experience for the rest of their life. And you can do a lot of damage, man. You can make a lot of mistakes. And that's where coaching, and that's like the Harbaugh Coaching Academy, but not just us, but Spoken and some others. It's like, hey, man, you have a great responsibility. Coaches like Chuck Kyle handled that responsibility with aplomb, and that's why they were successful. That's why they won all those games, because they understood that. I want that memory to be one that they cherish. When they think about that year that they spent at St. Ignatius playing high school football, I want them to smile inside every time they think about it for the rest of their life. I want them to cherish all the great things that happened, all the challenges, all the adversities, all the disappointments. I had a very disappointing career at Miami of Ohio, but I still challenged my career. I still cherish my career there, because they helped make it a great experience, the people, the coaches, everybody, even though I didn't become a pro football player like I thought I was going to be, so there's way more to it than that. So that kind of goes with that alignment thing. I mean, I know where you're going with the alignment question, and it's a great question and towards success. And that contributes to how we build our culture and our shared understanding, how we run a perfect play. We better be aligned. We better be on the same page. I think that part of the question is all about communication, constant communication. We talk about obnoxious communication. We coined that phrase 7, 8, 9 years ago, obnoxious communication. Now we've gotten into joyous and glorious and overwhelming and beautiful communication. Communication all the time, and everything that has to do with our football. Why? Because we want to be on the same page, because we want to be thinking the same way. We want to be playing with one mind, one heart, and one mind. We want to, when the battle hits the fan in the game, we want to be thinking alike. We want to see it the same way. We want to already know how we're going to react and how our teammate is going to react to that situation. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of communication, takes a lot of practice reps and all those kind of things. So that's that alignment thing. You got to work really hard at getting all those arrows pointed exactly in the same direction. Now, just one other thing, Keith, about alignment. Think about the old days of navies, naval warfare. Think about the Great Armada, the Spanish Armada, the British Empire. Think about was built on their navy. Think about the American Navy that was built like into World War II even. But mainly, let's go back to the wooden ships with the sails, right? So without radar and sonar and all that, it's pitch black. You're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The waves, the storms are raging everywhere. You can't see 2 inches in front of your face, and you're sailing your ships, your 50 ships, okay? When the sun comes up, where are the ships? What happened? Are they spread out all over the ocean, all dismembered and vulnerable? Or are they still sailing in exactly the same direction, okay? And what does it take to build that kind of discipline, that kind of communication, that kind of everybody being on the same page? That's the analogy that I make. It's incredibly hard. It's almost impossible. But you better do it if you want to show up for battle together. And that's what we're trying to do on Sunday. We're trying to show up for battle together on the same page, operating in a way that is aligned, as you said, shoulder to shoulder, so we can operate and run perfect plays as much as we can.
I think a big part of that alignment, of buy-in, of creating a culture is how you evaluate and how you give feedback, right? I think that's what looking just in the realm of human performance, that feedback goes a long way. That evaluation goes a long way. I mean, I've, been on our head coach, like, please film every practice. Like, it may seem like an insignificant practice, but we need to film it. We need to be able to give these guys feedback. I mean, what are some of the things as far as, things you think about, like the design of it? This is how we're going to do it with the New York Giants. This is how you talked about communication. This is how we're going to communicate these things. And there's some individual adjustments we have to understand about how certain people take it and kind of coach them along to take that the right way. For you, the evaluation, the feedback, how do you want that done within your organization?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to communicate. And there's the two obvious things: there's praise and there's correction as a coach. And praise is affirmation. Praise is awesome. Praise is fun. Praise is good. Praise is encouraging. Praise is very important. Correction is constructive criticism. It's done the right way. Correction is care. Correction is how much I love you and how much I'm in your corner. Because if the coach or the other player, the leader, is willing to step out on the limb and grab a guy aside and say, hey, listen, this is something I've been watching, this is something that you could do better. You could really, if you could get this thing down a little bit better, this technique, or maybe the way you're approaching the weight room, or maybe the way your grades are going, if you could do a little better with that, I just see so much in you, and this is what I see. It's a risk to do that. It takes art, because you risk what? You risk rejection. You risk the person putting their hand in your face and being mad and all that kind of stuff. So I think it should show. If someone comes to me and corrects me, someone tells me I got lettuce in my teeth. My wife tells me all the time when I got something on my face when I'm eating, which I do more often than I probably should, at this age. And I'm just like, I know she'd tell me that because she loves me, because she cares about me. She wants me to get the lettuce out of my teeth so I don't embarrass myself, and I appreciate it. And so it goes with that. It's like, if I'm willing to accept that the way it's given, which is from the perspective of somebody that cares enough about me to take the risk to make the correction, then I have a chance to really improve and become something special. If I reject that, if I'm defensive, if I just want to make excuses for that, what are the people around me going to do when they see lettuce in my teeth? Are they going to tell me anymore? Or they're just going to let me kill and keep walking around with this glaring issue? That's what a coach can do, but you got to do it the right way. And here's the last part of that. We call it the 90-10 rule, but the idea that, okay, if a person is doing 90% of the things well, and 10% of the things that they need improvement on, which is, a really good player, a great player might be in that world. Ray Lewis used to always say, coach me like you coach the other guys. Correct me. Make me better. Ray Lewis probably had 2% of the things he wasn't doing well, but he wanted to hear about the 2% of the things. But I owe it to the player to tell him about the 90% as much as I tell him about the 90%, 90%, and the 10%, 10%. And if I do that, then he's really going to listen to the 10%. But if I don't do that, if I harp on the 10%, 90% of the time, and the 90%, 10% of the time, then he's going to get the impression that I think he's 10% good, when I really think he's 90% good. And he's going to say, I can't do anything right. Every time I turn my toe the wrong way, you're on me about it. It's like, no. I'm on you about it because I love you and I care about you and I want you to be great. But you know how I can express that? If I do love the guy, I can tell him how good he is 90% of the time. Then he's going to understand the context of the correction. And that's really important.
Coach, flipping ideas here a little bit. Practice has been on my mind quite a bit. And so I guess the one thing that's different now getting back into, and I had to think back like 20 some years when I was doing this before, is, two-way players means a practice has an offensive part and a defensive part. So that 90 minutes or that 2 hours, I'm only getting a little piece of it, which really, I've been looking at how we practice and the drills we use and why we use drills, and the realization, like, we got to be really efficient with time and really understand how this fits into the bigger picture and how is this going to show up on film for you guys. Obviously, everybody has their own area. Everybody has, a lot more time than I have. What are the important things in designing a practice? What gets into practice? The things that coaches use in individual periods?
The thing about practice is the elegant simplicity thing. It's like, you have to put together a great practice if you want to be great. I mean, you got to get the most done. You got to get better the most you can in that practice in every single way. And football is a complicated sport. There's a ton of layers to it. There's a lot of things happening out there because it's 11 players and it's a lot of different phases and there's a lot of different types of plays and there's a lot of different situations. There's a lot of rules. I mean, it's crazy all the things that you got to cover in football. So if you're not organized, then, you're not a good coach. So you have to have everything down to a T, and everybody, and within every aspect of how you organize the practice, every coach has got to have everything that he's doing down to a T, especially his individual period. My brother's a big proponent of, if you're a position coach, individual period is your time to shine. That is your period. You need to have that thing organized. You need to have many guys getting, you don't need a bunch. They should never be in lines. There should never be long lines during individual. Guys should be getting work, should be getting reps, and you should be working on the things that are going to matter, not just rote drills that you learned when you were a junior high defensive back. And so this is the drill. How to tell you backpedal. You better have your drills organized in ways that relate to the defense that you're playing, the skills and the things that they're going to have to accomplish when they start playing. And you got to be thoughtful and creative and imaginative, and you got to be safe. All those things. And the people come to our practices, and the thing I love to hear it, and I always hear it, is like, "Wow, I can't believe how organized that is. I can't believe how people are moving all the time. Everybody's doing something all the time, coach. There's just there's activity everywhere, and it's also intentional. Intentionality. What a great word. That has to be the byword. How you do that, man, that's up to you. Okay. Can't tell you how to set up your practice, how to set up you got to figure all that out all the time. Training camp is organized all through training camp, and we're going to tweak it every single day because we're going to meet the circumstances as we face them. But these practices are set up in a way that we make the most out of every minute that we're out there, because that's valuable time. And if you don't do that, you're doing a disservice to your players and to your team, because you're just wasting their time.
If a high school coach showed up for training camp here in a couple weeks and wanted to learn, what's the one thing you would want them to steal from a Giants practice? What would that be?
Oh man, that's such a hard question. I mean, I would hope they would see a lot of stuff, and it would depend on what they're looking for. But the biggest thing I think they'll see is that efficiency of everything we're doing. And I think they'd see the high level of coaching. I mean, it's an art. It's one thing to teach a gap scheme, double team on a 3 technique, but the way you drill it and the way you coach it and the way you say it, the way you correct it. Yeah, you better be filming everything. And you got videotape now. It's not like 16 millimeter film that costs a bunch of money. Put your phone on the thing if you have to. You should be looking at everything all the time, because if you're a good coach, then it's a precise game, and you're chasing perfection all the time. So, and what an opportunity it creates for you to, I text players like, I'll be watching practice tape and I'll just put my phone up to the screen and I'll do it and I'll voice over it. It's like, what are you thinking here in cover 3? You got 2 verts off of a fast motion rail release. Where should your eyes be on that? Or tell me what happened. Then it gets us into they text right back, and you get back a little back and forth, and you've had a great conversation. Why? Because you care enough about them to spend the time to text them and show them the video. I mean, I'm a pro coach. I have a lot of time to do that. Some guys have jobs, so you got to figure all that out. But there's always a way, You think you want to coach and you want to be good, you're thinking about it all.
Yeah, but I mean, I think any coach can do exactly that. Put it in front of your huddle and send it to them right away, whether, that's me working what I do during the day or a teacher during his planning period, and you have those opportunities. I think the one thing, as you talked about that, how you would do that is, tell me what you saw here, right? Asking the question rather than saying you should have done this really opens up opportunities for that player to learn, right? Instead of you being just the guy commanding it all the time, do this, do that, getting them to think about it, that's really how you develop a player who's going to go problem solve out on the field.
Scott O'Brien, the great legendary special teams coordinator, National Football League, who's one of my mentors, used to always say, and still does, he'd say, boy, it's not what you know that counts, it's what they know. So how are you going to know what they know if you're not dialoguing with them all the time about it? We are in a part. Coach and a player is a collaboration. We're working together, and so we got to be talking all the time. I'm not dictating to you. We're sharing. I'm sharing with you. I'm teaching you, hopefully, and you're learning, but you're teaching me too. And one thing I really need to learn from you is what you're thinking, what you're seeing, what's going through your mind. It's like anytime there's a mistake, and it happens at this level too. Like, it's not enough to say, well, it's just bad technique. Or what happened on that one? Hey, he's wrong. He got it wrong. Or, well, I told him. It's like, well, yeah, okay. You can do those are not answers to me. It's like, why did he do that? He did it for a reason. There's a reason he reacted that way. What did he say when you asked him? Okay. That starts the conversation, and that starts the correction process.
Yeah. Definitely. And you're going to get a lot more out of it than if you just told them, do this, do that, for sure. You've done some incredible things also in thinking about developing coaches and putting together the Harbaugh Coaching Academy. And when I first became aware of this and saw it, what a treasure trove of just honest coach to coach conversations. It's not thinking of it as clinics, because I think some of the best things you can get are these honest conversations that coaches have. I think that's where some real learning occurs. Talk to us about, I guess, how did this originate? Why did you put it together? And what do you want coaches out there to be able to learn from this?
Thanks for bringing that great question. It's really what you're doing right here, Keith. It's an opportunity to sit in on a coaching conversation, and I do it all the time as much as I possibly can. The thing that, because of, the relationships that, and we all have relationships in our business, but I've been coaching the NFL. I know a lot of these guys. And so you get a chance to get to know them, and they're willing to sit down and talk and tell you, what they think. And I think when you listen to a lot of these conversations, you see it's like, gosh, Dan Campbell's really not that much different than me. Oh, he's a lot bigger, a lot stronger. He's got a way better beard, Fu Manchu, than I could ever grow. But we look at things the same way. He has the same problems. He's wrestling with the same things. And this is what he said about it, and I think it's just such a window into growth, and it's fun. Everybody listens to podcasts nowadays. If you're a coach, put these things on. They're like a podcast. They are a podcast, basically. Yeah. And it's so much fun to hear Sean McVay, talk about, Sean McVay. Now you got to listen because he talks really fast, and he's pretty high level. The guy's brilliant. Or Kevin Stefanski, or so many, just unbelievable number of great guys. So I love those things. We're gonna. I wish I had more time to do more, but I think we got like 500 or 600 interviews on there. So that'll keep people busy for a while. And there's also business people, and there's military people on there, generals in the military who are friends. There's talk about health and safety, so many cool things. And I would just encourage, if you're looking for a good podcast type deal, it's free. All you gotta do is put your email in there. If you wouldn't mind doing that, we'd like to know who you are. But I don't think that's too much to ask for some of the most high-level eavesdropping that you could ever have. So I think it's pretty fun stuff.
And this is probably a really tough one for you, because people ask me, and I've done 2,000 coaching episodes, right? You've done a lot of these in there too, but what's one of those conversations that for whatever reason sticks out for your one coaching point or something you learned from Harbaugh Coaching Academy?
It's so interesting that you asked that. Now I could just give you so many examples, but I think about Bobby Chesney when he was coaching at Holy Cross. He came in and he was talking, and he's just enthusiasm unknown to mankind. I'm like, damn, I'm this guy, man. This guy's real deal. And he goes to James Madison. He's in the playoffs. Are you kidding me? And then he's now UCLA, and he's gonna do great things at UCLA. I don't doubt it. Because why? Because what jumped out at me was his unabashed enthusiasm for all these things that were very unconventional, that are ways to get your team motivated, ways to bring out all the things that really kind of matter in team building, and also get the guys to play hard, get the guys to perform under pressure. He had really good theories for why he had these certain tactics that he used in practice, and I was just blown away by it. I'm like, man, I always got me thinking, like, how could I do this in the NFL? Like, could I simulate something like this? So I encourage you, if you're watching this, go watch Bobby Chesney on the Harbaugh Coaching Academy. He'll give you some really cool ideas for how to bring some things out of your guys in practice.
Yeah, this is something I'd encourage our listeners to dig into. There's incredible things there. I think so many conversations, just like this podcast. If there's something you're looking for in coaching and you want to hear it from a high level, you've put together that library of guides. It's at harbaughcoachingacademy.org. We'll put that link in our show notes as well. And as Coach said, it is free. Just put your email in there and get after it. Definitely a lot of learning. And I think that's what all of us really value about this profession, is we get to continue to learn. And Coach, I appreciate that opportunity to learn from you today and have that conversation with you as well.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Keith. And I hope the guys got a few good things out of it, maybe some ways of thinking about coaching or thinking about how they go about it. There's certain things that I feel like I've learned that, and the hard way, most of those things, because I'm a pretty hard-headed guy. And hopefully some of this stuff helps out. So great for what you do. Thanks for what you do. You're a great advocate for coaches and coaching, and for the importance of coaches being really good at what they do because of the incredible impact that they do have on young people.
A huge thank you to Coach Harbaugh for joining us today and for sharing so openly about leadership, standards, communication, and building systems that help players succeed. If today's conversation challenged the way you think about coaching, don't let it be the end of learning. Visit harbaughcoachingacademy.org and you get free access to hundreds of coaching conversations just like this one, featuring NFL coaches, college coaches, and leaders from outside football who all share practical ideas you can apply with your own team. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to Coach and Coordinator Podcast wherever you listen. Leave us a review and share this episode with another coach on your staff. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.